Imagine growing up in a town where the schools that raised generations of Black excellence are now completely gone. No plaques, no memorials, no reminders that they ever existed. As a member of Black Generation X, who came after the baby boomers, I benefited from their struggles. But I also witnessed all of the trauma as well as the erasure of the history that came. So let's take a moment to talk. For those of you who may not be aware, there's a town in Arkansas called Pine Bluff. There are a number of school districts in the area, but the most prominent one is the Pine Bluff School District. For a time period, there were only two particular high schools of note. One was Merrill High School, which was for the Black population, and Pine Bluff High School, which was for the white population. But there was a period of time where the baby boomer explosion resulted in a population burst that saw an increase in the number of Black students that were coming up through the system. As such, we were now looking at a particular period of time around the late 1950s where you were starting to have more Black students than the Black school could accommodate. For those of you aware, Brown versus Board of Education in 1954 was the seminal Supreme Court decision that effectively said the separate but equal was unconstitutional. However, in 1959, another Black high school was actually built, and that was Southeast High School, to accommodate the large overflow of the Black population that was matriculating during this time. So now we are looking at a situation in time around 1959 where you had two Black high schools, Merrill High School, as well as Southeast High School that supported Black students, and Pine Bluff High School that was for white students. "1970 provided a very unique bookmark for Pine Bluff. Now, it's important to understand that for some out there, there is this perception that the schools just merged. But the reality is that the transition was not easy at all. One, Merrill was closed altogether. Southeast went from being a high school to being a junior high school. And all the students were encouraged or moved to Pine Bluff High School. A couple of things to note. Merrill High School has just basically a marker there. So there, if you go by that area, if you don't know what that school was in terms of its significance or know that's where you were passing, it's very easy to pass by that area and not fully appreciate that you're passing by one of the original Black high schools in my hometown of Pine Bluff. Southeast was recently torn down, and it also has that same impact, where if you go by the area, you may not fully appreciate the fact that you're going by an area that literally was the second Black high school. This is an important distinction because what happens is that once you start going down the path of removing specific historical impactful representations of a particular time period that left a positive impact, it creates this impression that it never existed. The other aspect we don't talk about is the human aspect. For those of you who don't know, a lot of students who found themselves at predominantly Black institutions, Southeast or Merrill, where they were nurtured and supported and provided a safe space, now found themselves being forced into these desegregated environments in a hostile environment. But it wasn't just the students who felt this as well. It was also the educators. A lot of the educators from these schools, Merrill as well as Southeast, were integrated within this new school system now that was one, but they found themselves being demoted, being put in a position of assistant principal, or being relegated to a lower staff position that they had before. As such, not only were they traumatized by the fact that their own workplaces were being eliminated, but they were being degraded by the fact that they had their places being reduced. And while we're talking about preserving our stories, this is exactly why I put together my Black Generation X collection on Fourth Wall. For those of you who haven't checked it out, it's a bundle of ebooks, videos, and behind-the-scenes stories that go deeper into experiences kind of like this what we're talking about today. So stories that shaped us, but that too often go untold. If you've been connecting with what you've heard so far, you'll love this bundle. It's not just about history, it's about understanding the bridges that we built and the ones we're still crossing. You can grab it in my Fourth Wall store. The link is in the description, and you can see the attachment as well. It's important to remember the trauma and the resilience of the generation that came before us. And this information has to be documented, because what ends up happening is that if you don't document it, without these markers, without these representations to educate future generations, what ends up happening is that future generations will come to believe that these things didn't occur. They'll come to this belief that these things never happened. And erasure leads to revisionism, which is where the oppression is downplayed or denied. And it's important that we don't let that happen. If your town has erased pieces of its Black history, I challenge you, document it. Record the stories, gather the photos, push for plaques or memorials, share this video, start the conversation, and let's make sure our history doesn't vanish into silence.